In 2012, Prometheus opened in theaters to a lot of hype. With Ridley Scott returning to the Alien franchise and a stellar cast including Noomi Rapace, Michael Fassbender and Charlize Theron, people were rightfully excited for the franchise to return to form after a couple of disappointing installments. Now, 10 years later, anytime an online discussion turns to bad or dumb movies, Prometheus inevitably gets mentioned, with endless comments chiming in about how awful the script is and how dumb all the characters are. Well, I actually love Prometheus, and I think it's one of the better sci-fi horror movies out there. So I'd like to share why I think it's great, and maybe it'll help some of you gain a new appreciation for this movie. So for the few of you who haven't already closed the video to tell me how wrong I am, let's take a look at what I think makes Prometheus great. There's no way to talk about Prometheus without addressing the criticisms leveled against it. But I realize doing so might make it seem like I'm just telling you that you're wrong for disliking it. And just to be clear, that's not my intention. While I find most of these criticisms to be nitpicky, if these nitpicks hamper your enjoyment of the movie, that's perfectly valid. There are movies that if I were to critique, I'd probably seem very nitpicky too. But all those little issues can add up to make me dislike a movie. So I get it. But at the same time, I do believe that a lot of people hating on Prometheus aren't exactly sharing their genuine opinion. Prometheus has become a meme, and some people might just take it as common knowledge that it sucks and never look beyond that. It's like, I don't have to listen to Nickelback to know that it's bad, right? And when someone writes, dumbest scientist ever, it often feels less like someone sharing their opinion and more like writing, and my axe in a comment thread. It just happens to be your turn to say the thing. Anyway, let's look at the criticisms that I've seen most often over the years. One scene that gets brought up constantly to show how bad the writing is this scene where Vickers and Shaw run away from a crashing spaceship. What idiot would run away in a straight line when you can just run to the side and be alright? The commenters often ask. Well, a lot of people actually. It's not hard to find videos of people running away in a straight line from falling trees or even trains coming down tracks. Panic makes people do dumb stuff. When your fight or flight instinct kicks in, it's very different from sitting on your couch and taking the time to devise the most logical and efficient solution to every problem. And on top of that, the ship they're running from is huge and there doesn't seem to be a safe direction to run to. And Vickers and Shaw do veer off to the side after running a short while. So I don't think this indicates dumb characters or bad writing. The only character that touches anything sketchy is David, the android. You know, the character who doesn't have to be afraid of infection and who is literally programmed to bring back results at any cost. There's also this guy, who I agree is an idiot, but we'll get back to that. This is more tricky. It seems obvious, right? If it's your job to make maps, how are you gonna get lost? Well, for one, he's not a cartographer, he's a geologist. Mapping unexplored structures seems tangential to his actual profession.
I'm just a geologist. I like rocks. I love rocks. Now it's clear you two don't give a shit about rocks.
Also, he's shown freaking out and storms off in a panic. So him getting lost doesn't seem like much of a stretch to me.
Congratulations on meeting your maker.
Thank you.
Pull yourself together, man.
This is just one of those plot conveniences you have in all horror films. Is it perfectly motivated? No. But would the overall movie really be better if they had added another scene where the two stand at a junction and in their panic state take a wrong turn? Or is it simply something we can infer? Because in the overall story, it's not really all that important. This one I agree with most out of all these smaller issues. Yeah, on an alien planet you should keep your safety gear on. But as we can see, their monitors indicate that the air is safe to breathe, and it's Holloway who insists on taking his helmet off while being told not to do so.
It's breathable.
What are you doing? Charlie, don't be an idiot.
Hey, don't be a skeptic. Right, there's something generating an atmosphere. David?
Dr. Holloway is correct.
Cleaner than Earth, actually.
They were terraforming here.
Please don't do that.
Look, Ellie, I'm not wearing this thing anymore. Wish me luck, baby.
Only after he takes off his helmet and seems okay, do the rest follow. While you can look at this moment and think, what a bunch of idiots, I think it serves to highlight Holloway's cavalier attitude. In an earlier scene, we see Holloway insisting on exploring the alien structure immediately upon landing, even as the captain advises caution.
Captain, would you please tell the survey team to suit up and meet us in the airlock?
There's only 6 hours left of daylight. Why don't you leave it till the morning?
Oh, no. It's Christmas, Captain, and I want to open my presents.
So together with this scene, it works to establish Holloway as impatient and prone to risk-taking. So while I think this is a fairly valid issue, I don't think it indicates bad writing per se. Now we get into the meat of it. Most of the criticisms can be traced back to this issue. How can all these genius scientists be so goddamn dumb? Well, they're not presented as a scientific elite. Most of the crew seems unaware of what the mission actually entails.
About 100 credits is a terraforming survey.
No, if it's a survey, they would just tell us.
This is a corporate run, they're not telling us shit. Come on.
100.
Alright, you're on.
All these people have agreed to go into cryosleep for years and travel somewhere unknown for reasons unknown. Like the geologist outright states, they're there to make money.
No offense, but I've been asleep 2 years. I ain't here to be your friend. I'm here to make money. You got that?
The main characters are basically future versions of this guy. They take cave paintings and go, these dots look similar, it must be aliens. In the movie they end up being right, sure, but that's not the kind of logical leap a respected scientist would make.
So you're saying we're here because of a map you 2 kids found in a cave, is that right?
Even Vickers doesn't take them seriously.
I think there might be some confusion about our relationship. Wayland found you impressive enough to fund this mission, but I'm fairly certain your engineers are nothing but scribblings of savages living in dirty little caves.
But Wayland wanted true believers on board.
Wayland was a superstitious man. He wanted a true believer on board.
The only really dumb scientist is a biologist, who messes with an alien life form he doesn't understand. Yeah, this guy is a major idiot. But his entire role in the movie is just to die spectacularly. He fits into that horror archetype of characters where you don't feel bad about watching them get killed. And on top of all that, scientists are not robots. They're not cold, calculating machines who only take the most rational course of action under any and all circumstances. A lot of brilliant scientists are complete morons outside of their field. And if you think that these characters being reckless and stupid is unrealistic, I urge you to read up on the Demon Core. So yes, there are contrivances. But all movies, and especially horror movies, have always used contrivances to move the plot along. The contrivances in this movie are no worse than in Alien. We could pick apart that movie in much the same way as Prometheus. Why does Kane stick his face into this strange alien egg thing that just opened up? Why does everyone allow him back out of quarantine after having an alien attached to his face for hours? Why are all the Marines in Alien so completely useless? They seem to have experience with some alien life forms, so why do they completely fall apart at the first sign of danger? These must be the worst written soldiers ever. Why is Ripley, a civilian who survived an incredibly traumatic experience and who has just gotten out of cryosleep, more in control and focused than these trained Marines? Or take the internet's darling for smart characters making smart decisions, The Thing. These geniuses watch the men in the helicopter desperately trying to kill this dog, to the point of throwing grenades at it. And none of them think, oh, there might be something wrong with this animal? Like, at the very least they don't consider it having rabies or carrying some infection? How stupid is that? That's my main issue with the oft-repeated criticisms of Prometheus. Taken all together, they make up a couple of minutes of screen time in a 2.5-hour movie. They're the type of contrivances that are found in all movies, and that audiences have accepted time and time again. But here, for some reason, these handful of issues suddenly mean that this is the worst movie ever. So again, my point is not to say that you're wrong to dislike the movie. My point is that I don't find these criticisms to be compelling at all. It would be different if the movie positioned itself as being a realistic, hard science space procedural, but it doesn't. So to judge it on something it's not trying to be is strange to me. And what really makes all these criticisms a non-issue is that none of it is actually plot relevant. Holloway doesn't get infected because he takes off his helmet. He gets infected because David spikes his drink with the black goo. The two idiots who get lost and infected wreak some havoc, yeah. But they're fairly quickly dispatched and don't really affect the course of the plot. There's no idiot ball in play here. The plot is moved along through the actions of characters who have clear motivations. I wonder how much of the hate Prometheus gets is because it isn't the movie people wanted. People seem to want something to expand the lore of Alien and Aliens, to fit neatly into the existing story and explain more of the xenomorph. And Prometheus is certainly not that. So taking all these issues into consideration, I still believe Prometheus is a very good movie. No, it's not perfect, but it's fun, it's interesting, and what elevates it for me is that it actually tries to say something deeper. Usually, big blockbuster movies tend to operate on a more surface level. The story may be complex and the characters may be interesting, but the focus is usually on entertaining the viewer rather than raising questions or exploring an idea. What makes Prometheus memorable, in my view, is that it's a blockbuster movie with actual subtext and interesting themes that are examined through its plot and characters. One of the main themes of the movie is established in the opening scene. We see an engineer on the primordial Earth, drinking a mysterious substance that breaks down his body and seeds his DNA so that new life can take hold. So here we are presented with themes of self-sacrifice and creation. To create a new life, the engineer gives his own. He makes way for a new generation. This has parallels to parents making way for their children, of creation being a selfless act done out of love. This theme is borne out throughout the film by multiple characters and their actions, and ties into the themes of mortality and faith. Shaw, our main character, has not only lost her parents at a young age, as we learn later, she cannot conceive.
Nothing special about the creation of life, right? Anybody can do it. I mean, all you need is a dash of DNA and half a brain, right?
I can't create life. What does that say about me?
Her character and motivations are all informed by this missing thing, this lack, that drives her to seek meaning from religion, from her work, and from her belief that her creators are out there and have the answers that she desires. In contrast, Wayland refuses to make way or sacrifice anything of himself. He is entirely selfish, and creates from selfish motivations. He doesn't love his daughter, whom he barely acknowledges as his child.
A king has his reign. And then he dies. It's inevitable. That is a natural order of things.
Anything else?
No. Father.
And he has only created David to become more like a god himself.
There's a man sitting with you today. His name is David. And he is the closest thing to a son I will ever have. Unfortunately, he's not human.
Wayland is willing to sacrifice others, and even his own creations, as long as he himself can keep on living. Vickers seems to have no faith in anything, but looks for meaning in her father's approval. She seems cold and distant to the point that the crew wonder if she's secretly an android as well. She seems like she fits in with other people even less than David, but rather than connection, she looks for control. All this ties into the search for meaning and belonging that underlies all the characters' actions. But to fully address this theme, we have to make a small detour to Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence of Arabia is one of the greatest movies ever made. And if you haven't seen it, you should definitely go watch it. The reason it is relevant to discussing Prometheus is the fact that we see David watching it with great interest. We even see him reciting lines from the movie, and it seems he changes his appearance to look more like Lawrence.
The trick, William Potter, is not minding that it hurts.
There is nothing in the desert, and no man needs nothing.
What was that?
Just something from a film I like.
In fact, Lawrence of Arabia serves as something of a key to unlocking the themes to David's story and the motivations behind his actions. So here is a very brief summary of the relevant aspects of Lawrence of Arabia. Lawrence is an officer in the British Army around the time of the First World War. He's disinterested, he doesn't fit in, and he seems to be adrift in life, looking for meaning. He's sent to support the Arabs in their revolt against the Turks. And in this conflict, he finds brotherhood and meaning. He imagines that he has found a place to belong, and finds purpose in the unification of the Arabs, and in furthering the ideal of self-rule among them. But as he gets more involved in this conflict, he slips into complete delusion, thinking himself to be fully one of them. Even though he has blue eyes and pale skin, he thinks he has fully become an Arab himself. But alas, he's rudely awakened by local police arresting him for spying and violently lashing him. The Arabs reject his attempts to unify the different tribes, because his ideals are not theirs, and their history, culture and traditions are not things that he can ever fully understand. Lawrence ends the film more lost than ever. His experiences have made it impossible for him to return to British life and identity, while also impressing upon him that he will never truly belong among the Arabs.
Well, sir, going home. Home, sir.
You may have already noticed parallels between Lawrence and David. David is also an outsider. He is an android surrounded by humans. He lives to serve the needs of these people and tries to be like them.
David, why are you wearing a suit, man?
I beg your pardon?
You don't breathe, remember? So, why wear a suit?
I was designed like this because you people are more comfortable interacting with your own kind. If I didn't wear the suit, it would defeat the purpose.
He seems to be looking for acceptance and belonging, but finds time and again that he will never be considered one of them.
Unfortunately, he's not human. He will never grow old, and he will never die. And yet he is unable to appreciate these remarkable gifts. For that would require the one thing that David will never have: a soul.
You think we wasted our time coming here, don't you?
Your question depends on me understanding what you hope to achieve by coming here.
What we hope to achieve was to meet our makers, to get answers.
Why they even made us in the first place.
Why do you think your people made me?
We made you because we could.
Can you imagine how disappointing it would be for you to hear the same thing from your creator?
David also happens to be the most proactive character in the movie. He's the one activating engineered technology, opening doors and infecting the crew. And there's always this tension in his character. Is he really a soulless machine, or is there something more at play? Fassbender's performance is brilliant. There are so many moments where he subtly seems to convey hidden emotions to the point where we're never really certain whether he's following instructions or if he has his own agenda.
What happens when Waylon is not around to program you anymore?
I suppose I'd be free.
So we have these themes of creation and self-sacrifice, of a desperate struggle for meaning and belonging, and they all intertwine to move the story and motivate the characters. In fact, this is one of the main reasons why I think the so-called stupid actions of the characters actually fit. These characters, and by extension mankind, are like children. They stumble around without understanding, lash out around them out of fear that they're in reality insignificant and their existence is meaningless. They're desperate to be told that everything's alright, that they matter, that there's a deeper purpose to everything. But this is a cosmic horror, and the truth that they find is there's no purpose or meaning. Or if there is, they're not equipped to grasp it. There is no deeper meaning to why Waylon created David. There's no deeper meaning to why Shaw can have children, and there's no deeper meaning to why the engineers created humans. Instead of creating their own meaning, these characters just want the answers handed to them. Basically, they all want Daddy to hold them and tell them just how special they are. But Daddy is just annoyed at all these little shits running around breaking everything. So yeah, there's quite a lot of depth and meaning here for what's at the end of the day a blockbuster horror film. But even in terms of plotting, there's a lot of clever stuff here that precludes it from being the worst script ever, as I've seen commenters call it. For instance, there are several moments that indicate that contrary to what the crew think, this is actually not the first time Wayland has come into contact with engineered artifacts. There are the moments of David interacting with the alien technology, the overheard conversations where Wayland insists on getting results this time, and when they find the severed alien head, they seem to know how to remove the helmet. And of course, there's the fact that Wayland himself is on the mission, seemingly convinced that they will find something this time. There are moments of clever symbolism and foreshadowing.
Here's mud in your eye, pal.
There's a lot here to show that the script is actually very well written and structured, and there's been a lot of care and attention put into it. And Prometheus has some of the most effective moments of body and cosmic horror ever put on film. The alien C-section scene is properly horrifying, both in idea and in action. I think the movie looks great as well. So much of it is done with practical effects and sets rather than with green screens, and it's immediately obvious. There's a physicality to everything that allows for more interesting framing and blocking. Every frame oozes with atmosphere. I've already touched upon the acting of Michael Fassbender, but the cast is great all around. Charlize Theron's restrained frustration and sadness, Logan Marshall Green's bravado masking his uncertainty, and of course Noomi Rapace, who balances the quiet moments of emotion with a very physical performance. Now some of you might be thinking, yeah, all that's fine, but how does all this tie into the alien mythology? I can imagine that a lot of people who dislike Prometheus wanted a movie that expanded on the lore and the world building of the Alien franchise. People wanted answers, but instead Prometheus just served to complicate things and raise more questions. Well, for one, I think this is perfectly fitting with the themes of the movie, and also with cosmic horror in general. We're not supposed to have all the answers, because more often than not, the answers that we're looking for do not exist. But in a less meta sense, all the previous Alien movies were about the xenomorph, and Prometheus is about humanity and their relationship to the engineers. This is the Alien universe, but this is not the Alien story. It is telling that the movie is just called Prometheus. It's not Alien: Prometheus. It's not Prometheus, an alien story. It's just Prometheus. I think the intention was to create a new jumping off point for the franchise without the baggage of decades of crossovers and spin-offs. But yeah, we all know how that went. So, once again, I'm not saying that you're wrong if you dislike Prometheus. If you wanted a more direct continuation of Alien and Aliens, and you were disappointed, I get it. Covenant hit me the same way. But I think there's way more good than bad here, and especially if you like cosmic horror, there's very little out there that can actually compete with Prometheus. So if you haven't watched this movie in a long time, give it another shot with fresh eyes. Who knows, you might just find something to enjoy. If you've made it this far, thank you very much for watching. If you still disagree, feel free to leave a comment telling me I'm an idiot. If you liked the video, I'd appreciate you hitting a thumbs up button and subscribing. And maybe we'll see each other again in the future.